What did you hear a little bit, and what do you take away?
So I have 2 or 3 benchmarks for you next year to see where we've got to. It was a terrific forum. Congratulations.
Thank
Some
you.
fascinating sessions and very good news from Madrid on Finland and Sweden. The first one is, have we stayed the course for Ukraine? We need, Olaf Scholz the other day at the Katholikentag, the Catholic meeting in Germany, asked the question, kann man Frieden schaffen ohne Waffen? Can one create peace without weapons? Well, one might ask the question at an academic seminar, as we like to do in Oxford, but the answer is no. If you face someone like Vladimir Putin, you need the weapons, and we actually need to send in a lot more weapons, fast, and the ammunition, and $5 to $7 billion a month to sustain the Ukrainian economy. And as we face a cost of living crisis in our own countries, a likely recession, possibly a hint of Eurozone crisis in relation to Italy, possibly a touch of refugee crisis because of the food shortage in the Middle East and Africa, I fear very much that our publics and our politics on both sides of the Atlantic are going to falter and not be prepared to stay the course. Only if we stay the course will we have a durable peace in Ukraine, a situation where Vladimir Putin cannot plausibly claim to have won. Of course, he can still claim to have won, but not plausibly claim to have won, and Ukraine can plausibly claim to have won. So that's my first concern.
What else are you concerned about? What else worries you looking at the situation? You talked a bit about the political, sort of staying the course politically, but there are other things to worry about, no doubt. What else?
So another word that has been buzzing in my head in this whole forum is the word narrative, because it seems to me that we in the liberal democratic world, Europe, dare we even say the West, are doing many things right, but we're losing the battle of narratives with our own publics, with the publics in the authoritarian states we face, be it Russia, China, Iran, or Turkey, and crucially with the global South. I mean, if you just look at the war in Ukraine, I've mentioned the concern about our own public. We're doing a very bad job. I mean, one of the greatest sessions here was the one on the future of Russia. I don't know how many of you attended that fantastic breakfast, talking about how we get the message through to people in Russia who are critical of the war. We're doing a very bad job of getting the message through that our quarrel is with Putin, but not with Pushkin. And that's a crucial message. Our quarrel is not with Russia. And in the global South, we are absolutely losing the battle of narratives. Food shortage, food price hikes. It's your fault, West, it's your sanctions. No, it's Vladimir Putin's fault. And for me, really sobering is the world's largest democracy, India. If I try saying to Indian friends, hey, the Ukrainians are actually fighting an independence struggle against a war of recolonization, which is what is actually happening, against, if you will, a Russian Raj, that argument gets nowhere at all. So I think we have to find much better ways, and when we come back next year, we can see how far we've got with that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you've given us great pointers for that. If you'll allow me maybe just to ask you about one more, well, perhaps it's not a worry, we'll hear. The quality of democracy in the West. I mean, this is at base a transatlantic conversation, and we've talked about the foreign and security policy dimensions, the geopolitics, but there are things going on in our societies, I'd say in my own, in the United States, obviously. Say a word about that.
Well, you can't tell a good story unless you have a good story to tell. And our problem is, I thought Senator Murphy was very interesting on this, very frank about the state of American democracy, but look at Hungary, look at Poland, look at many of our democracies. So first of all, we have to put our own house in order. I mean, by the way, I spent a lot of time working on the history of the Cold War. By far the most important thing the West did to win the Cold War was not anything we did in our foreign policy. It was keeping our own societies strong, attractive, prosperous. It was the magnetism of that. Can I say one other thing quickly? Every crisis hides an opportunity. The bigger the crisis, the bigger the opportunity. And I see a big opportunity in this crisis. I've just finished writing a history of contemporary Europe, and if you look at it from the mid-1980s through to the early to mid-2000s, there's one of the biggest upward and forward movements in European history. I mean, we really made enormous progress towards the great goal of a Europe whole and free. Since 2008, financial crisis in Georgia, it's been crisis after crisis after crisis. Think about it. Financial crisis, Eurozone crisis, Ukraine 2014, refugee crisis, Brexit, Trump, Poland, Hungary, COVID, and now the invasion of Ukraine. Need I go on? But I see an opportunity given us by the extraordinary Ukrainian resistance and the pushback that we have had. And I think the most important decision made in the last 3 weeks is the European Council decision on candidacy for Ukraine and Moldova, because I see a real opportunity for which the key institution is actually not NATO but the EU, to start a new forward movement of the Eastern enlargement of the key institutions of the West, starting this time with the EU. Of course, it's a tall order. Of course, it has to be done differently this time. We have to look at models of staged accession. But the opportunity is there, a big strategic opportunity to advance the frontiers of a Europe whole and free, which is in a way a great Brussels Forum theme.
Absolutely.
And by the way, last word, if we succeed in that, if we succeed in extending the frontiers of Europe whole and free into Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe, importantly, then at the end of the day, this is going to be our most successful Russia policy. Because at the end of the day, if we succeed, Russia will have to wake up to the fact that it has lost an empire and has to start finding a role. And as Britain shows you, that can take a long time. But we hope we get there in the end.
Timothy, thank you very, very, very much. You've not only told us a great deal about what we heard, but also about what we might talk about next year. And we really thank you for that. Thanks
Looking forward to it.
so much.
Brilliant.
Well, we've come to the end of Brussels Forum 2022. I hope you'll agree we've had really an extraordinary 3 days and evenings, actually, of conversation across many, 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 many subjects. I think you've also heard, and it's very appropriate on the 50th anniversary of GMF, a good deal about what we do, in fact, and whether it's about civil society or leadership or all the policy work that we do, whether it's about geopolitics or cities or about disinformation. There's so much that's going on, and you know, that's one of the wonderful byproducts of this, is that you get to hear about that. You heard a good deal also about a possible Marshall Plan for Ukraine, and that's so appropriate on the 75th anniversary of the Marshall Plan as well. Let me just say that overall, our mission, which is very simply to strengthen transatlantic cooperation, is more important, more relevant than ever against the backdrop of a war in Europe. What else can one say? But I believe in the basic truth of that. Going back to what Heather said in her opening, we have a mission, actually, and that mission is extraordinarily important today. Let me just say some thanks. You have to do this, and it's right to do this, and it's essential to do this. First of all, to our partners in this Brussels Forum, to our founding partners, the Belgian Ministry for Foreign Affairs, to Mercedes, to our strategic partner, Amazon, to our forum partners, Google and NATO, and actually all the other partners, and there are many of them that have helped us make this happen. It does not happen by accident. It happens because we have the resources and the intellectual help to do it. So sincere thanks for all of that. Let me also say a very, very sincere thank you to our staff here at GMF. We have, between the staff and the volunteers who are with us, about 80 people here. That's quite an extraordinary ratio of participants to staff, and I hope you share the view that that really does make a difference. This does not happen by accident. So a huge thank you to all of them. Some of them some of them, many of them are in the room. Why don't you stand up? I mean, the staff who are here, and the volunteers, and the volunteers. And also to let you know that there are some probably missing because they're upstairs in our offices doing, hard at work making this end properly. It was a very complicated year for many, many reasons, not having done this in person for a few years, but also because we had this wonderful link to Madrid, which was hugely valuable, but also not the easiest thing to do always. So thank you for hanging in there with that. Let me say a very special thank you, finally, to two very special people who really do make this happen. To my colleagues, Nicola Leitner and to Louise Longeby. Please come up here and join me, please. Thank you. We did our COVID tests this morning, so really, really tremendous thanks. Finally, thanks to all of you for joining us. It really does make a difference to have real people in a real room in person. I think you'll share that. The virtual bit adds something, and we'll keep that, but it's not quite the same. And it's been a great pleasure to have you here all with us, despite all the travel difficulties and everything else. So just to say goodbye to you all, to thank you again, but also to wish you very safe travels, and we see you again next year. Thank you. Oh. Goodbye.